Okay, the meeting is called back to order at 6:33 p.m. Please rise and the clerk will lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, may I please have a motion and a second that the board approves the April 16th, 2024 agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? Can I have a motion and a second that the board approves the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? May I please have a motion and a second that the treasurer's report, including the cash report, general fund cash report, the general fund revenue status report, general fund budget status report, school lunch fund cash report, and school lunch fund revenue and expense budget report for the month ending January 30th or 31st, 2024 be approved.
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? Okay, special reports.
We do have a couple of special reports this evening. First, we have an equity and access update, really focused on special education. So I will invite up Mr. Black and Mr. Dreschler and Ms. Fitch and Ms. Lerner and Ms. Sapone. And as they're coming to take their seats to present, I would just like to point out to the board and people in the audience that the library looks much different this time than it did the last meeting, because as our wonderful student rep might tell us later, this is now a cafeteria as we are starting construction on the other cafeteria, and then once that's complete, this will become a library again. So I'll turn it over to the team. I believe you've got the clicker and it should be good to go.
Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Scott Dreschler, and just want to quickly thank you. It's an honor and a privilege for our ability to be able to present to you on celebrating all things special education and the things that we've been able to do over the last year. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mary Sapone.
Hi, I'm Jen Lerner.
Hi, Laura Fitch.
And hi, Michael Black.
So thank you again. We are very honored to be able to be here tonight. So what we'd like to do is just a brief overview of what the role of a special education administrator looks like in Penfield. Talk briefly about our continuum of special education services. Dive into the professional development that we've been able to build and provide throughout the year. And then just talk a little bit about special education next steps. I promise it's not going to be all me talking. I am able to come here. It's very nice, sometimes under the Office of Instruction, but I can't tell you again, this is the first time in my 9.5 years here where we have had the whole special education team present to the Board of Ed. So we are very excited for this. So the role of a special education administrator really is such where you work with every member of the school building. You collaborate with the building leadership. You collaborate with teachers, teaching assistants, all related service providers. We work in the world through, starts in general education supports through our multi-tiered system of supports, and then that goes through providing students accommodations and such through a building level based plan. We work in collaboration with that. But then we also work through that Committee on Special Education process. And that involves referrals, compliance, New York State regulation compliance. And with that said, students that end up with an individualized education program or plan, they receive specially designed instruction, which is that second bullet there. That is really targeted individual instruction that New York State helps us cater to the individual needs of students. You can do that through supplementary aids and accommodations. You can do that through universal design for learning with the end in sight, modifying the format in which students are presented material. There's a multitude of ways that we can meet individual needs. So we bring the knowledge to be able to support the teachers as well as their special education expertise to meet the individual needs of students. What we'll get into also is the professional development that is used to support that specially designed instruction for all staff. And then with special education comes much compliance. It comes process, procedures. Our role is to ensure that everybody that is involved, which is everybody that's involved through supporting students, is in line and knows what we need to do to be able to provide information to the teams and families and community members to meet students' individual needs through an IEP and also through a 504 plan. In addition to that, beyond the specially designed instruction, the related services that are included in that we work in collaboration with, and our members will get into a little bit more detail around how we support individual areas, counselors, psychologists. So Michael Black works with our school counselors, Jennifer Lerner works with our school psychologists, Laura Fitch will be working with our school social workers, and Mary Sapone helps support speech and language pathologists, because each one of those domains has their own specialty area. And in the world of special education, everybody comes together to work collaboratively to meet their needs. What we are very excited to talk more in depth about is our special education continuum of service. We have an expanded programming, kindergarten through 12th grade. We've been able to utilize general education settings to meet the needs of our varied learners, of students with variable learning abilities. We have been able to, K through 12, shift the location of those services into the general education classroom, while at the same time maintaining an opportunity for special classes, kindergarten through 12th grade. But you'll hear tonight terms as integrated co-teaching, direct consultant teacher, and related services in all of those areas. Specifically targeted related services that we've added this year are in the area of specialized reading. We've been great at meeting the needs of students through reading intervention. This year we were able to really formalize that service on IEPs for students that qualify through that Committee on Special Education. I'm going to start turning it over now to some of the highlights at all of our grade levels as you work through the special education world.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Sapone, and I oversee preschool to first grade special education in Penfield. I have the pleasure of being able, or I guess I see my role as more parent education. Many people think of preschool as aged 4 and up, but actually I start providing services and supports for families as early as 2 years, 8 months sometimes if they're coming in from early intervention. And I have the ability to help transition them from early intervention services when they're still essentially babies to the preschool special education system, which starts at 3 years old. So I've always loved the parent education that goes into that, because it is a very daunting process for parents to begin, A, for their young child, and B, to come into a system that has so many rules and regulations and eligibility criteria and different terms that they may not be familiar with. And so I do really try to give the basics of information to families and educate them on the special education process as early as possible. And I think that that really empowers them as families in being able to help and support and advocate for their child as they get older if they still need supports. The other area that I am fortunate to work with too is their transition into kindergarten. again, this is a huge transition for families. They have 4-year-olds going on to being 5, possibly needing special education services, possibly not. So sharing the differences between eligibility criteria, between preschool special education and school-age special education. I've developed a process that's a year-long process to help educate families on preschool to kindergarten, starting the year before they enter kindergarten, involving individual sessions with families, educating them on the different continuum, just like Scott said, of what we have here in Penfield, and also observing their children in their specific preschool special education settings. So I have a good idea of what they might need coming into our schools. So I really do find that my role is primarily parent education with families at this younger age. And I've really been fortunate to expand my role to kindergarten and first grade and be able to follow the students a little bit longer in my role than I have been able to, where I just kind of lead them up to kindergarten. So it's been nice to see, to be in meetings and to see where they are in first grade, because that was not an experience I ever had before. So I'm very lucky to have that new role. Thank you.
And to piggyback off of what Mary said, much of my role is parent education and child education. I'm in a new role, so I'm starting to work in elementary 2 through 5 and working with out of district. But previously to 2 weeks ago, I was at Bay Trail. So I'm going to talk a lot about what work we did at Bay Trail. And one of the most important things that our team works on as a whole, but also in that school, was to expand the continuum and make sure that we were supporting students in the least restrictive environment. So we worked to build consultant teacher programming in all of our core classes and to add ICOT sections so we could make sure that students with disabilities could be in the general education setting but get really quality curriculum with modifications. So that has been something very important to me. We've also expanded the elective classes so that our multiply disabled students can participate in those general ed classes with support, and worked on trainings with those teachers so they're able to best meet the students' needs. We have also expanded what we're doing in resource rooms. So within our resource rooms, we're making sure that it's pre-teaching and reteaching and very specific to the student disability and need. We also have our 12-1 classes as well, but we mix the continuum. So if you need specific support that's 12-1 for math, you can still be in a CT ELA class. Other work that we've done that I think is really important is worked on things for general ed students. So prior to the CSE, making sure that we have data for MTSS. So we've added things like a drop-in center so students can see core teachers and get extra support, and then we can use that data in the MTSS process to track how often they're going and what they're working on. We've added some really cool things like a quiet lunchroom so kids who are overstimulated by the noise can go to a smaller room. And we've added a Zen Den, which is a sensory sort of over input area with lights and bubble tubes that anyone can use. A Zen Den, which is sort of the removal of all of those things, just a quiet area to decompress. And then, oh, that's all of them. All right. I'm also working with a psychologist. We are revamping our behavior support plans. Those are general education plans, and creating a system so that we can be ensured that everyone has access that needs to know so that all kids are really appropriately supported.
All right, so thank you. I'm not going to try to reiterate too much, although you'll hear some consistency across the board, which is really great. 2 things I really wanted to highlight today for you are, one, in addition, just building off of what Ms. Lerner just shared, is I'm extremely proud of the work that we're doing in regards to the expansion of the integrated co-teaching services model at the high school. So I've been here just over 2 years, and in my first year here, we were offering really at the 9th grade level that ICOT model. And each year we've, in collaboration with our principal, we've expanded that model up through. And so next year, I'm extremely excited to say that we will have really finished building out that model for the high school, and we'll offer, in 9th grade, we'll have all core courses offered, in 10th grade, we'll have all core courses offered, and then in 11th grade, we are also adding a U.S. history section. So we're super excited to continue to build on, and as Ms. Lerner shared, get our students into that least restrictive environment to really make sure that the students that are in our 1201 or our special class sections, those are the students who really need that support, and to try to challenge and push our students to be as independent as possible. So when that they exit and go out into the real world, that they're, you know, productive and prepared for the next step, whether that's work, whether that's college, or whether that's some sort of trade program. So that's our goal, is to really increase independence as students move through our models here. And the second piece that I really wanted to highlight again is the 1213 model. So we have a life-centered education program. We offer a lot of the same things that Ms. Lerner just shared in regards to a sensory room for students, which we're super excited to build. We hired a new teacher this year who was a previous teacher at Mary Carriola, so we're really able to cater to our students who have more complex learning disabilities and complex learning needs to make sure that we can, or my goal is to keep as many students as possible at Penfield High School before we have to look at out-of-district placements and programs. So I'm super excited with the work that we're doing there. And one of the things I just wanted to highlight in that program is that we have the ability to send our students to the multi-OC and focus program. So I know some of you may have awareness of what that is, but we're able to send our LCE students with teacher assistants into, you know, the community, to whether that's a you know, a multimedia course, you know, a working on landscaping, maintenance, and we're able to send those students to get some career readiness, work readiness skills, so that as they prepare for that next step, which for our 12131 program is often looking at transition services, so that's 12 plus, they have access to education through age 21. And so it's really trying to get them some experiences, because that transition, those transition programs really highlight those vocational skills and prepare students for that next step. So, you know, we're really, really excited at the high school level to continue to expand the continuum and offerings that we have.
Yes, perfect. With that said, coming full circle as we come through preschool to kindergarten and first grade, when Michael and Jen and Mary talked about that full continuum, there is a full continuum as of at the end of this year. That is one of my most proud things to be able to share with the Board of Education, is that we've been able to expand our ability to meet the variability of student learning profiles in a general education setting as close to the peers as possible. With that said, 2nd through 5th grade also expanded the integrated co-teaching model in addition to the direct consultant teacher model. Typically things that we would service in other capacities, students are now able to be serviced within and close to their general education peers. So 2nd grade through 5th grade has that as well. The best part, I think, also about this is that we started this work 5 years ago in the middle, 6th through 8th grade. And then we built up and we built down, and now we're proud to say it's a K through 12 broad continuum. The last thing that the continuum shift impacts is our extended school year program. So through the extended school year program, the Committee on Special Education makes determinations on if an individual child shows regression over breaks or things of that sort. We also look at students through the lens of where is the gap and where is it most significantly impacting. So if you are a 4th grader reading at a 1st grade level, we don't typically utilize grade levels, but looking at data through Ames Web in collaboration with the Office of Instruction and the Committee on Special Education, we were able to shift some of the location of where we service students with varying abilities from our special classes to an integrated co-teaching classroom. With that said, you cannot go from an integrated general education setting to a special class for summer instruction, but there are students that require through the Committee on Special Education, and they show regression in their reading and their math abilities. We were able to offer, in addition to the special classes for students with significant cognitive and or areas of need in our 12-on-1 students, but students that are accessing our integrated co-teaching that have significant weaknesses in reading, a summer program that they can come and be transported to school for 2 days a week, or students with higher level of need 4 days a week for that additional math and reading support through the summer and through the CSE. So that's how it branches through the summertime and impacted our extended school year continuum as well. So before Laura Fitz transitioned to the 6th through 8th special education administrator, she was supporting our professional development. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura Fitch.
Thank you. So yeah, as Scott shared, I was, before my appointment as the special education administrator at Bay Trail, I was a teacher on special assignment, and part of my role was supporting the design of a comprehensive professional development program. We began developing that program in the spring of last year, and in collaboration with the team, we really wanted to focus on designing a comprehensive yet targeted professional learning timeline that really focused on designing instruction and professional learning at all grade levels and across all settings. So that looked like creating opportunities for all of our consultant teachers, K-5 and 6-12, to spend time together, all of our 12-1-1 teachers, K-5 and 6-12, to spend time together, our 12-1-3-1 teachers, and our integrated co-taught teachers. We're able to have time throughout the year. Everybody has had at least 2 to 3 release days throughout the year, spending time engaging in professional learning. The topics of professional learning were driven by some identified areas of growth. Last spring, we went through and reviewed some of our processes and procedures, particularly around the development of quality IEPs. And we really looked to see how can we improve our IEP development processes, and how can we support our teachers so that they feel confident as they're developing those documents. And lastly, we really wanted to build a foundational system. So this year really laid the foundation for where we plan to head in future years in terms of providing release time for teachers, looking at our department meetings, our grade level team meetings, really how can we support our teachers in the existing structures and processes that we currently have. In sharing some of those topics, some of the things that we looked at include aligning IEP goals to assessment scores and foundational learning skills. This is really important. We want to make sure that our students' goals are driven by the essential skills that they need to learn at each grade level and carry through with them throughout their K-12 schooling experience. We also looked at designing progress monitoring systems, including data tracking charts, to really align our data processes in terms of connecting them to MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support, which happened before our special education procedures, and then making sure that as we're monitoring our students' goals, we have solid data to share not only with the team, but with families and other service providers. Another piece of this is utilizing our current reading systems that we have. So we have a foundational reading program in place, which Scott spoke about through specialized reading as an additional related service. And we really want to make sure that as our reading specialists are providing that instruction, we have systems that align with our students' goals, and we have ways to track their progress as a collaborative team effort. Another component is, as we rolled out, Scott spoke about the expansion of our integrated co-taught classes at the elementary level. As we rolled that out, we had the opportunity to partner with Webster and Brighton schools and be able to visit some of their integrated co-taught classes to see how they were designing their programs, how they were supporting their teachers with professional learning, and then take that learning back and digest it and see how that would look in Penfield. And then lastly, we've also engaged, as Scott spoke about at the beginning, in some learning about function-based thinking in order to support our students in their behavioral needs, in their social emotional learning needs, and then really honing in on specially designed instruction. So how are we changing our classroom instruction? How are we changing our learning environments to really support our students and their learning profiles?
And some of the other areas that we've focused on is universal design for learning. We partnered with Harvard, trained at Bay Trail, the staff there, and district leaders in how to do universal design, which really works on modifying material for all students. So it's a tier 1, tier 2 type of intervention. And we also looked at sort of where Laura was with that ICOT CT training, creating contracts, teaching teachers how to work together collaboratively, creating agreements, looking at best practice in CT and ICOT, how to teach parallel and things like that versus one teacher, one assist. We looked at templates for lesson plans that teachers could work on together so we could modify the material right in a lesson plan and work for students with divergent needs. Mary Carriola came and worked with us with TAs and our 12-1-3-1 teachers to work on how to support our staff in being stronger with behavior management, how to work with kids with autism and support them better, recognizing their needs and preventive strategies, and looking at working with students with communication devices and speech language issues. We've also been working on training our new APs, how to, hold a meeting and basic things like that, how to open IEPs, and trained clerical on procedures and processes.
All right, so then at the high school level, kind of building again off of what you may have heard, I mentioned to you how excited we are with the expansion of the integrated co-taught program, and so with that as the first piece that I want to talk about is, in addition to the release days that Ms. Fitch shared for the different 12-1 teachers, for the co-teachers, at the high school level we also have individual time set aside for teaching pairs to collaborate. So not only will they work together and kind of have a little bit of professional learning for a couple hours, but they actually will have time to co-plan lessons, work together to identify their own teaching styles, either at the end of the school year or over the summer. We really understand, and we've taken feedback from teachers in understanding how important it is for them to build those collaborative partnerships and get to know one another, get to know one another's teaching styles, get to know how they best teach, and kind of work that out prior to the start of the school year. So we offer that, again, at the end of this school year. We'll offer it for next school year, over the summer. So we really have different times throughout the year that we're offering that. In addition to that, I'm working on identifying time, so similar to what Ms. Fitch shared again with doing kind of learning walks as they rolled out the integrated co-taught model at the elementary level. I'm working on identifying ways to have our 12-1-3-1 teacher go out and see, Fairport, Victor, West Irondequoit, different 12-1-3-1 programs to have an idea of the different ways that those programs can operate, just to make sure that we're best meeting our student needs. So that's an area that we're working at. In addition, we've spent a lot of time within our department meeting time and just professional learning, again, on the creation of goals. I know Ms. Fitch mentioned this, but another piece that we're really working on is not only aligning it to the assessment scores, but also making sure that it's aligned with students' programming and needs. So if a student is in an integrated math class, then they should have a math goal, something that's aligned with that. What are they working on? Why are they in that course? We want to make sure that our IEPs, again, align with each other. So there should be a statement of need, a program that's aligned to it, and a goal that goes along with that. And then just for me to share out, kind of looking into next year, we're going to be looking at our resource room model just to make sure that we have best practice in place, making sure that we're supporting students. You heard pre-teaching, reteaching, making sure that it's a time to really work on some of those skills, work on vocabulary. So that will be a major focus area for my department next year, as well as reviewing just the transition sections of our IEPs, making sure that as students, again, as they work through high school, they're starting to think about what they want to do in their lives. Are they going to go to trade school? Are they going to go to college? Are they going to go straight into the workforce? And so really being able to work on making sure their voice, as well as their parents' voices, are heard within the IEP, as well as captured on our transition or level 1 assessment that we have. So that's really the goal for next year, those 2 points.
And that was just the tip of the iceberg. So our next steps, again, I think is to thank all of you for your support, and again, Dr. Potter, for allowing us the honor to come here and share everything that we're doing, because when I hear it from all the members of the team, it's a lot, and it's very much to be proud of, but the work is never done, and it's only just begun. So as we've already started proactively planning for the rest of this year and next year, collecting feedback, but that's that continued collaboration with the teachers through their feedback. They're in the classrooms every day with the teachers, our teaching assistants, our staff. Where do they see the need, and how do we address that need? And it's continued collaboration and utilization of that MTSS process to support through those committee on special education referrals. And then looking at that targeted professional learning for all of staff. It's targeted professional learning for our teachers, for our lunch and recess monitors, for our bus drivers. It's everyone helps all students. So with that said, please invite us back, but we're open for any kind of questions that you may have.
Board members, questions?
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for showing up here today. And it's very obvious that you you care about our students. And what I heard a lot of was a lot of student-centered planning. What do our students need? How can we get it to them? Who can we hire, train? And then also, important too, is our teachers. How can we help our teachers support our students? So I'm very excited to see where all of this goes, and I am very excited to see our 2 new folks in their positions. And I'm going to keep an eye on this, folks. Yeah, there's a lot of information swirling in my head, and I've made little notes of what I need to go and look up. You education people and your acronyms, man. Come on. And then you throw in ratios too. I know what 1211, what a 1211 setting is, but can you share with me and other members of the community what 12131 is?
Yes, I can expand on that. So that's within our special class continuum, and it's 12 students maximum, 1 teacher, and then for every 3 students, there's 1 additional adult personnel that can be assigned to that class.
Perfection.
So there could be 12 students, 1 teacher, but there could be there could be a speech pathologist that could be in the classroom, there could be a teaching assistant. But yes, for every 3 students, there's 1 adult additionally. And that pathway specifically services students with significant cognitive and or language delays that may not be progressing towards a Regents or a local diploma or exit credential in that way. They most likely may be accessing a New York State alternate assessment or a skills and pathway or a skills and achievement credential. But that's the difference in that continuum
Okay.
of service.
All right. Thank you for clearing that up. And last thing, last comment is that I'm really, I use excited and appreciate a lot, but those are the 2 words that come to mind that our special ed kids are with gen ed kids. And just knowing that correct me if I'm wrong, is it horizontal learning or vertical learning? When you learn from each other, and that you build the empathy in the gen ed kids, oh, this friend of mine, learns differently from me, and let me understand that more. And also the special ed kids oh, hey, there's my friend. They get things like that. Interesting. Let me see how I could, be like that, or let me see what kind of tricks they have. So because that's the world we live in. It's not just one type of person, one type of learning. It is so diverse, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I don't have a question, I just have comments. Go ahead. Surprise. I just want to say I heard lots of really great things. First, Tasha, thanks for all the work that you have done with your team. It's clear that you all work together with that collaboration. I heard MTSS multiple times. I heard collaboration multiple times. I love that you are bringing your support staff together and your special services together and using that common language, because we all know, our kids that struggle the most, they need that common language, or we just cause more confusion for them. I love, Mary, how you talked about educating families and you teaching them how to be their best advocate for our kiddos, because sometimes parents that aren't in the world of education, they don't know, and there is so much jargon, and it can be so overwhelming, but that's their baby, and that's their world, and we want to just make sure that we continue to support them. So I really appreciate that. I heard of lots of transitioning. I think that's so important for those kids, is just making sure that what we already know that works, that we keep doing that. And if we know it doesn't work, let's not waste our time with it. Lots of that least restrictive environment. I love the ICOT system. I think it's really beneficial for all kids, and just that constant alignment and keeping those expectations high for kids. So thanks for your hard work. I know it's hard and it's important, so thank you.
Again, since going after these 2, I have nothing really that I could add, but thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your support and just all of your support for our students. Thank you.
Go team.
Before you leave, I'll just point out, I wanted to thank that, if I do my timeline right, I believe the 2 newest members of Team Penfield made sure to wear their red colors to the meeting. So just wanted you to know that it was noted, All right, and I would just second everything, including, as you noticed in the presentation, we're thoughtful around its equity and access special ed report, because it really falls under the work we do around equity out of Dr. Potter's office, and really a team approach in terms of making sure we're supporting all students who come through our doors and get them where they need to be. So I know you guys do incredible work, and I just really appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, there's one more. We have a special report next. I will share, it's a textbook presentation, very excited about. And we have Sheena Conway and Aaron Zimmerman here with us this evening.
So many chairs.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I am Sheena Conway, Director of Humanities.
I'm Aaron Zimmerman, Department Chair for the Social Studies Department at the high school.
So we are really excited to present on a new text this evening that we are recommending for a new course that we're offering at PHS next year. So the text is Freedom on My Mind. It is written by Deborah Gray White, Mia Bay, and Waldo E. Martin. We are excited because we have never offered this course before. It is a new full-year AP elective that will run as one full section next year. So AP African American Studies is going to be taught by Laurel Rodman, and Aaron Zimmerman is a part of that collaboration. They've done a lot of work this year to prepare for the course, so it's very exciting. I also want to mention that this course is open to any 10th, 11th, or 12th grade student that is interested in enrolling in the course. There are no prerequisites. That was important to us. And I have the clicker, so I should switch the slide. So the text, when we were selecting this text, we had several criteria in mind. First and foremost, we needed to find a text that really centralized and put the African American experience in the foreground of American history. So this is a course that is very comprehensive. It runs for the entire year. It starts with the ancient African kingdoms, the African diaspora, and then it carries all the way through contemporary 21st century issues. So we needed a text that could capture all of that. We were also really interested in readability and accessibility for our students. So this is a college level course, but we want students to feel like they have access to the anchor text that we use for the course. I also want to mention that College Board actually requires that we use all of their primary sources. So we're lucky in that they provide us with primary sources, but what they don't do is they don't provide us with a textbook, and they don't provide us with secondary sources. So we appreciate that choice and that freedom, but it also really requires us to be thoughtful in the resources that we select. So with that, we did not feel comfortable making this decision in isolation. So we've partnered with SUNY Brockport. We actually partnered with their Department of African American Studies. Dr. Averill Kelly has been instrumental in helping us develop this course. He also helped us choose this text, in addition to helping us curate additional resources that we'll use for the course. And Aaron will talk a little bit more about that, but I did think it was important to note that we did not make this decision in isolation. We felt it was important to consult with experts in the field.
Thank you. Thanks. There we go. So to give you a quick overview of how the textbook aligns to the course exam description for AP African American Studies, the course is broken into 4 units, the first one being Origins of the African Diaspora, and that it's essentially a survey of your pre-diasporic civilizations, all the way back to ancient Egypt, the development of the Bantu people, classical, post-classical, Sudanic empires, the Mali, the Songhai, East African city-states, the Swahili city-states, and trade on the Indian Ocean, which veterans of AP World will be very familiar with, as well as the overall cultural and social developments during all of this time period, which needless to say is a lot, which the textbook very much helps us with. And that's 11 subtopics in Unit 1, which chapters 1 and 2 in the textbook help cover. Unit 2 is broken into 24 subtopics, covered by chapters 3 through 8 in the textbook. That unit is called Freedom, Enslavement, and Resistance. And typically the order is more 2.1 through 2.9 is is the institution of slavery in the United States, all the way up through 1860, the economic sugar plantations. 2.10 through 2.19 are all your examples of resistance to enslavement: Stono Rebellion, the Haitian Revolution, Nat Turner, the success of dozens of maroon societies. And then 2.20 to 2.24 is essentially your connection from young America going into the Civil War, the rise of the abolition movements, and everything there as well. And then moving to Unit 3, the practice of freedom is pretty much right from the end of the Civil War to World War II, which is 18 subtopics in itself, which is chapters 9 through 13 in the textbook. And then Unit 4 is 21 more subtopics. It's a lot of subtopics. And that's 14 through 17 in the textbook. And the textbook takes you right into the 2010s. It is one of the most contemporary textbooks I've had the privilege of working with. Helen, who's a veteran of AP World, will remember that AP World is essentially like, oh, we got to modern society. It's like the year 2000 is like what the present is. And this brings you really into contemporary America. Weaving throughout all of this is one of my favorite parts of the course. So 10% of your AP exam score is a final project. And I really do appreciate College Board for this. It is a topic of your choice, anywhere within the lens of African American studies. Laurel and I, when we were planning out, and with as many subtopics as there are, we pretty much planned like day to day, like this for 2 days, this for 1 day. And woven throughout that is starting as early as November, we're already starting with the project because it requires analyzing and comparing primary sources, as well as a historiography of the development of African American studies itself, coaching students to be able to develop an argument and be able to defend that argument. But the reality is a lot of students, they tend, when they get a lot of choice, they're going to be drawn to the more contemporary issues, which is totally understand. So the other thing the textbook really helps with is it gives the students an ability to really start diving into the topics that they're going to be interested in, that they really want to do. When we're in November, which is, it's going to be Unit 2, and it's probably going to be earlier in Unit 2. And that's one of the nicest things with the course is it gives the students the flexibility to really dive into what are they most interested in, what do they really want to analyze. And so the origins of this text, you can bounce me to the next one. The origins of this textbook and how we ended up with it is kind of by chance when we met with Dr. Kelly. So credit to Sheena, who established our connection. So we've met with him twice. The first time he came to PHS during one of our curriculum writing days, and we had set aside 4 hours, and I'm not going to lie, at the time, I was like, 4 hours is a lot, and it flew by. He was a treasure trove of information. He brought everything he had. It gave us all his resources, everything for week 1, all these different options for day 1. And through this partnership, we focused on our 3 goals of engaging in learning specific to historical development of African American studies. We compiled our robust resources that have been vetted by historical accuracy, cultural relevance, and responsiveness. And he let us pick his brain for 4 hours, and he was awesome. I really appreciated him. And everything from, and he gave Laurel and I several different resources for us as teachers to utilize, a lot that are much more like sociological in African American studies itself and the history of it. And then the second thing we did was we went and observed his class. So it was a intro level class for African American studies, and I feel the highest honor or praise you can give to a teacher is, I would have loved to have been a student in your classroom. And so, Dr. Keller, if you're watching YouTube, I would have loved to have been a student in your classroom. It was so engaging. The discussion questions he built for the students, every single one of them, I was like, oh yeah, all right, okay. And he really has been such an asset for us to get an idea of not just how to accumulate all the resources that we need, but also to build a culture that's engaging, to really engage, maximize student discussion, and in regards to the project, pushing them to really dig into what are they interested in. One of the questions we asked them by chance was, out of curiosity, what are the textbooks that you really, really find are successful? And he mentioned Freedom on My Mind. And then we had, when we were initially starting, we emailed the general email that College Board provides. If you have any questions, email this. And not a week later, after he told us that, College Board also got back to us and also recommended Freedom on My Mind. It wasn't a, hey, College Board mentioned this, what do you think of this textbook? It was 2 separate recommendations. And they mentioned that it was recommended by the course leads who had written the course. So, I mean, that, you know, we had our 2 references right there. That was all that we needed there. Moving into alignment with the standards.
I would just like to mention about Dr. Kelly, this is a partnership that we'd like to keep going. It's been so beneficial, so we'd like to bring him back. We even, you know, have discussions around, you know, possibly guest speaker for the course. He was very mindful of bringing us through, like, positionality and who we are in teaching this course and making sure that representation matters. And so I think guest speakers, that's something that we want to definitely look into, and Dr. Kelly is an obvious choice for us because he is so engaging. Interestingly enough, he's a former social studies teacher at the high school level, so that I think helps.
Right? Yeah.
That helps with the connection that we were able to have with him.
And so then the skills and standards connection, you have the AP historical reasoning skills, which any veterans of any AP social studies course, these are very similar. The first one, applying disciplinary knowledge, essentially your contextualization skills, which the textbook is very useful for. And also source analysis. The textbook makes a point of utilizing several primary sources and what the purpose and the audience of them were, and also doing that throughout the course as well. And then the last one, argumentation, which that is very much kind of tied to the project itself. Students have to research and develop a historical claim, i.e. a thesis, and then have to defend it in front of their students and their colleagues, their fellow students, ask questions, ask them to defend it. And then from there, it is submitted to College Board to be a part of their AP score. And then for alignment to content standards, as I said on the previous slide.
So the Learning for Justice social justice standards as well are, the course naturally lends itself to these standards, and we've been really intentional about incorporating these standards K-5. We're doing the work now to make sure that they're also vertically integrated 612, but we feel like the social justice standards, they're divided into 4 domains: identity, diversity, justice, and action. And we really feel like the justice standard is where we see this course really the most. We want students to recognize that people are individuals. They are not monoliths, right? So we want to really be discussing stereotypes and what that looks like. Recognizing injustice and unfairness at all levels of society. Identifying important figures throughout history that led social justice movements. What was their approach? What was their philosophy? So the course is so rich in content, and certainly supports, we felt like that anchor standard in particular, the justice anchor standard. I do want to give a special thanks again to Aaron and Laurel Rodman. They've done a tremendous amount of work preparing for this course for next year. They haven't even been through the Summer Institute yet, and we have a fully developed course. Other districts are calling us to see what we're doing and if we would be willing to collaborate. So it's really kudos to that team and all of their efforts. Do you have any questions for us?
Board members?
Not a question, but more of a comment. I can see your excitement, and it's you know, as a Penfield alum, it's a wonderful experience to see that this course is happening. I wish that I was able to take your course. And you touched on just positionality, and so because that was was going to be my question, but it sounds like you touched on that. But do you have any? Have you guys thought about maybe how you're planning on maybe addressing any concerns that may arise, since this is the first time that this is taught? We have had different issues within the district with race. Have you guys talked or got
support on how you may be proactive in dealing with if there are anything that comes out of this.
We've had
that's
these conversations about positionality and who we are in terms of representation and teaching the course. And so one way to address that is we've been developing a letter that we plan to send out to families beforehand that really kind of explains what the course is about, who we are, and we actually are going to send that to Dr. Kelly to vet, but also the sensitive content that is going to be discussed in this course and how we're going to address it. So there needs to be a protocol for, what do we do prior to these lessons? What are we doing, to be thoughtful as we're teaching these lessons, and what does the follow-up look like after? And I see that's where a lot of our restorative work comes in, where we're checking in with kids, we're circling up, and we're having those conversations as a check-in. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, just to ditto what Dr. El-Amin-Turner said, I'm really excited about this. I'm excited for my kids to take the class, one next year and the other a few years later. So I had two questions. One was about, or a suggestion, one was about having guest speakers, recognizing how kind of ironic it is to have a white teacher teaching this, and not that they're not capable of understanding the information, but having no personal skin in the game. So I'm glad that you're looking at who to have, and just wondering who will the teacher go to for advice, or this question came up and I didn't know how to deal with that. Do you have somebody in mind that they would, an advisor?
Yeah, I think that's where Dr. Kelly comes in, certainly, for his mentorship and his advisorship, but we also just recently learned that College Board is putting forth a mentor program that we can sign up for. So where Laurel, who will be teaching the course, she can on a monthly basis meet with a mentor and other teachers of the course, so they can sort of debrief and talk about what's coming, sensitive topics, or just have a thought partner in the process. And then of course, I would be supporting as well, and Dr. Maloney and Dr. Potter, both of our offices work closely together, and we've done some of this work around, historically sensitive topics and how do we handle that. But I do think that mentorship piece from Dr. Kelly specifically and from the College Board, I'm so happy that they're offering that, will be a huge help. And kudos to Erin too, because Laurel Rodman is teaching the course. It's a singleton course that we'll be running, but he has chosen to also go through the training, so she has somebody to co-plan with and have a thought partner in the day-to-day work.
And then, sorry, one second question. Because the text sounds so wonderful, I'm sitting here wishing that every U.S. history student, that it weren't optional, that it were, because it's so critical. And I'm wondering if it's possible to take, I realize in U.S. history there's a lot of things to cover, but to take pertinent chapters from this text and interject them in the U.S. history classes, so that all students are getting some of this, because there's some of it that shouldn't be, there's some of it that shouldn't be optional.
Sure.
And so you can't take out the whole U.S. history text that you're using now, both for regular and AP, but you can interject some of these chapters for pertinent topics.
That's an excellent point. I think as we get more familiar with the text, we'll be able to figure out what is so critical that we have to make sure that we incorporate it into our U.S. history text and curriculum. We know our U.S. history text falls short quite often. Yeah,
I figured. Yeah.
I think the chapters for contemporary America, especially, would be very useful for that.
I have a question. Where can I get my hand on a book like that?
There's one at district office.
Just one?
And there's one at the public library, I think, or will be soon.
All right.
But we can get you a copy. We'd be happy to do
I
that.
would be very interested to read it. And I know I have 2 graduates of Penfield High School, and they would have loved to have done this course, definitely. They did AP History, and I forget what they did, but I do have an upcoming student, so maybe she'll be interested in this. And I also look forward to College Board bringing out a South Asian diaspora, a Chinese diaspora course, an island, Pacific Islander course. Like, I could go on and on, right? Because this is what our world is made up of. This is what our country is made up of. This diversity, us working together, sharing our gifts, right, and thriving in our diversity. And I would like our students to know it all before they get out there. Yeah. So when they do get out there in the real world, they're not surprised. Yeah. So thank you for your work. I appreciate it. And connect me with College Board. Maybe I could talk to them about the other
I can send you the email.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you.
I'm not going to talk, so you can talk.
Wow, I mean, they already did. But I'm so happy that we're getting this course, and just your enthusiasm. Like, if I wasn't already excited, just how excited you are, both of you, about bringing this and working with the teacher who's going to be teaching this. I think it's great. I think I would agree, because if you interject some of these topics into US, then it would get more enthusiasm and more kids interested in this AP course. But thank you so much for just all of your work already, and it's not even close to being started yet. So thank you. Yeah.
I do just want to point out, I don't like I gotcha questions, but I'm going to ask you a couple.
Sure.
Because I think they're easy. But I think it really hits upon what many of the board members talked about with the excitement in this course. Can you remind me how new this course is in the U.S., like from College Board? Is this...
So last year was the larger pilot, and I believe the year before that was I think that was the first pilot with a very, very small number of schools. So I believe we're going into year 3.
21, 22.
So this is the first year that's not a pilot?
Yes.
Like next year will be the first year that's not a pilot?
Yeah, first year with the exam.
With everything.
Yep.
And I remember just for the board and for the community, a conversation 2 years ago about could we get into that larger pilot? And we made some calls and dug, and the answer was no. They had College Board has a number, and then once you hit that number, like other schools can't get in. So I'm really glad, the departments continued to work on this. The other question I have is other schools in the area. Do we know of any that are definitely going to be teaching it next year along with us? Dr.
Kelly told us that Edison Tech is one other that he knows of. Yep. I think that was the only other one, right?
Mercy.
Oh, Mercy, I'm sorry, thank you.
Mercy was in the pilot?
Yes.
Right?
And I know Fairport is thinking about it, not next school year, but the year after, and so they've reached out to us, interested in what our process was, and I'm sure they'll want to hear how it's going as we embark on.
Those are the celebration pieces in terms of it's an AP course, there's a lot of work. The training, having been to AP trainings for AP World, but it's wonderful in terms of the community around of educators for the AP courses. Yep. And then the only other question I have is really just because I'm an AP World History guy.
Yeah.
So I left a district to go to another district to teach AP World because the district I was in would only focus on AP European. AP World, when it first came out with Peter Stearns, was all about 30%. Only 30% could be European history, and I loved that. It's shifted a bit over time. I think this is awesome. The one thing I'm just trying to wrap my head around is, so the students do a project that's 10% of their AP exam score, and then that has to get uploaded and sent to College Board. So we don't grade those; they all get graded by committee, like the AP exams get scored.
Our understanding, and we've read this again and again and again.
I won't hold you to it
because it almost seems too good to be true. Our understanding is that using the College Board rubric, it is the teacher that scores the student.
That's great. Okay.
I really hope that stays.
Yeah, I think so. For 10%, I think so. But it really is, the student, the project they selected. You really be able to push that and help them. And I know we utilize rubrics really well in the social studies world. So I have no worry there'll be concerns. I just think it's incredible. So I know which classes I'll be popping into. So you can let the teacher know. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes special reports.
Okay, student reports.
Hello. I have lots of reports for you today, starting with district. Right now, approximately 3 minutes ago, the night of low commotion started. Uptown Express from the high school and Midtown Express from the middle school, which are both singing groups, are performing with singers from Wayne County right now. Next week will be the 53rd annual jazz fundraiser featuring Berkeley graduate Ingrid Jensen. And the Penfield Education Foundation's 5K fundraiser is on April 21st. At PHS, Friday night is junior prom. Lots of friends who are excited about that. It will be held at Eagle Vale Golf Club. The PHS Art Club is holding a sticker fundraiser where proceeds will benefit the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And the Phoenix, the revived creative arts journal, is now accepting multimedia submissions until April 26th. A skilled group of Penfield students recently presented to earn the seal of biliteracy. Obviously, the eating area for juniors and seniors is now in the library as the Commons is being renovated. And today, special education students went on a field trip to the Autism Nature Trail in Letchworth State Park. And after school today, the Chem Club participated in an awesome experiment that included dissolving eggs. Don't ask me what that means because I have no idea. Tomorrow at Bay Trail, there will be a strings concert. The DEI committee at Bay Trail has planned many festivities for the month of April to celebrate Deaf History Month, Arab American Heritage Month, Ramadan, and Autism Acceptance Month. Bay Trail held a code of conduct meeting with a student panel who discussed their experiences with the code of conduct. Students can now sign up to attend a Bay Trail performance by the RPO, Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra, who will play some awesome music and discuss career paths in the field of music. There will also be an optional field trip to the Susan B. Anthony House and Mount Hope Cemetery to learn about women's history. And auditions for the Bay Trail Variety Show are coming up, where students can demonstrate talents like singing, drawing, comedy, juggling, or anything else they'd like to show off. At Scribner, published author and retired Cobbles teacher Luann Durin came to Scribner to read her book, Mrs. Green Loves the Earth, to 4th grade classes as a kickoff to an Earth Day research unit. The Scribner Environmental Club will meet with Director of Facilities George English to propose planting a natural pollinator garden at Scribner. At Indian Landing, next Monday, April 22nd, all students K through 5 will participate in a school-wide march around school grounds in honor of Earth Day. And on April 26th, there will be a birthday celebration to recognize Indian Landing's 75th anniversary, where students and faculty can look forward to games, drawing, history, and food. And at Harris Hill, registration is open for the Harris Hill Bingo Night, which is being held also on April 26th, where popcorn and beverages will be provided. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Superintendent's report.
Helen, I'm so excited that I only have 2 things to share, and you didn't say either of them. It's the first time, I think. So, but yeah, it was wonderful. I just have, I have just 2 student staff honors, and then I have an update in the Penfield Central School District update, which is on UPK, pre-kindergarten, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Driffill for business updates focused on primarily our budget for the 24-25 school year. So first is mock trial team. So congratulations to the Penfield High School mock trial team on winning the county finals versus Brighton. And why this is cool is this is the first time ever that Penfield's has won the finals. They lost to Brighton last year in the finals and won this year. And so the team will now move on to the next level of competition, which is in Buffalo. There's no date set for that. It'll be a Saturday, and they go against whoever wins the Buffalo area mock trial. Very cool. And then we, once again, really excited to be named Best Community for Music Education. If you wonder why, go back and listen to Helen, because she talked about some amazing musical things that are happening in Penfield. And this is the 15th year that the National Association of Music Merchants, NAM Foundation, has named Penfield Central School District one of the best communities for music education. And I think you walk into anywhere and with music playing in the auditorium, all of our concerts, but especially at the high school, when you see students who started potentially in Suzuki in first grade and all the way up, just some incredible talent and hard work. So thank you to our musical students, but also to our incredible music educators. I'll have really just one slide. I want to talk through Penfield Universal Pre-Kindergarten for next year, 2024 and 2025. Before I kind of go through just a couple of questions and answers, just as a reminder for the community, the board's aware, is this is actually only our second year offering a UPK, and we utilize state dollars to do that. It is, we've been able to last year and this year find 116 spots. So there is a lottery that we have to follow New York State education protocols for that. It's very up and up. There's no, you can't say certain kids get in first. It's a pure lottery. We are late with opening enrollment. Families who have a student entering UPK have seen a couple of letters out of my office. The district is late with open enrollment this year because we solicited requests for proposals, RFPs, with the hopes of additional community-based organizations. They would partner with the district. And there are required steps to this process which take time to complete. So I'll just remind folks that last year, our first year venturing into UPK, we utilized one CBO, which was the Bayview YMCA. They were wonderful. Ultimately, they were asking, I understand, but for more funding, and really we utilized the funding from the state. And so over time, we shifted. We didn't lose any spots going into this year. But now as we're looking, the current status right now is that when we are looking, we thought we had one other group. I will just give kudos to Mary Sapone, who you met earlier, who does so much for us with UPK. But she's talked to over 35 CBOs over the last couple of years trying to get people interested to host our UPK program in their community-based organization. Not everybody jumps at that for lots of different reasons. Their buildings do have to be up to par for New York State Education Department approval, and there are things that they need to do in order to accept UPK students from Penfield. But it is not without calling quite a few places. And our current status now, like I can say, is right now that we're currently finalizing contracts. We have a number of verbal agreements. Again, lots of phone calls, a lot of work from Mary Sapone and many others. So right now we're tentatively planned for 90 students next school year. So it is down from the 116 we've been able to have, but it's also, not zero, which we were worried, and trying to be as transparent as possible, getting that information out before break that we could potentially have 0 UPK spots, which is heartbreaking. I can speak for the board, I can speak for the district, not what we wanted to have to deal with at this late juncture. So the question we've received, so we're really hopeful that pretty soon we'll be able to release that we can take 90 placements. We're still working on that right now. One of the questions we've received, which is a great question, which is why aren't we putting our UPK in the Penfield schools? And if you happen to have an elementary school child and you come into our schools, you will probably notice that there are no empty classrooms waiting for students. We're not that far away from a completed capital project which added 12 classrooms to our elementary schools, 4 at Indian Landing, 4 at Harris Hill, 4 at Indian Landing, 4 at Scrivener, 4 at Cobbles, and those are already filled with student classes. So we don't have enough space to bring it in-house. If and when we bring it in-house, the cost of that program will go up because it will be Penfield staff teaching it versus sort of farming it out to a community-based organization. So we are that is one of our plans. I can talk is that we've had conversations on what do we need to do. If we want to make UPK something that is just a given in Penfield, we really need to secure space. That does take time. We are currently, if you follow our capital project planning, we're still working on what's referred to as the 2021 Transportation Facility Capital Project. So it's 2024. We're still working on that. I like to say that if you're not aware of how buildings work in New York State public schools, we have to get all the approval through SED, whereas a home builder can build a house in about 3 months. It takes us much longer because we don't just have to get the town to approve, we have to get everything approved through the facilities department at New York State Education Department. I don't know if you're aware, but they don't always pick up their phone. So there's a lot of work and a lot of support there. But that is something we are absolutely having conversations about. So really it's around the lack of space in our buildings. So when will enrollment for UPK open for families? As soon as the contracts are signed, we will be opening enrollment. So we really hope and believe we can get this done before May 1st. We do need to have those contracts ultimately approved by the board, but the board has been very supportive around UPK and the work around these contracts. So we believe that if we have the contracts, although not approved yet by the board but signed by both parties, we should be able to move forward with the enrollment, just not be able to share, you know, maybe where you are going or where you've been selected until we get the board to approve our contracts. And you know, we really truly recognize how challenging this is for families. UPK, and I just state for the board, my team, and the public, I always feel a little silly saying UPK because the U stands for universal, but it is not universal. It's that term comes from New York State. They would love it to be universal, but we also need funding to make that a reality. And so right now we are working, as I said, in finalizing our contracts with, it would be hopefully a total of 4 CBOs owned by 2 different entities, and we're working on getting those finalized so we can share more information out with our families. We are also looking at the potential for increasing funding. So a lot of times, I think back, I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, but I think back to COVID in the sense that the district had to make decisions based on New York State requirements. And so I always will take, you know, people upset, but sometimes, you know, our hands were tied on what we could and couldn't do. And similar here is the funding sources. So, you know, we are going to continue to advocate. I will give a shout out to Assemblyperson Jen Lunsford, who's been incredible, working and trying to advocate for the state to increase their funding per pupil, which would be huge. And so we continue to work on that, continue to work on long-term, and continue immediately now trying to make sure that we can secure as many spots as possible for the 2024-2025 school year. And again, when we put information out, even when it's not good, like we might not have a UPK program, we know that that message is not going to make anybody happy. We know that, but we also feel that we got to get that information out to be transparent, and we really appreciate families who've reached out to the board, to myself, to Mary Sapone. We hear you, and we continue to work on what we can do to ensure that UPK stays in Penfield and potentially is able to reach more students through this process. Any questions from the board?
I don't have a question, just
Sure.
a comment. I just think it's really important for our community to know that we receive, is it $5,400 from the state? Is that
Yeah.
the correct amount?
Yeah.
And part of the dilemma or difficulty getting our CBOs to agree is they want more money.
Mhm.
And we can only pay what the state is allowing us to pay.
Yeah, so we're allowed to, and we've talked about this, we are allowed to, you know, there are districts who have, typically districts who have brought it in-house, who have utilized general funds to cover the difference. And, you know, that's why I mentioned earlier is that I say if and when, but we really are dedicated to focus at UPK as a conversation we have had quite a lot. I believe Dr. Maloney would have already built one if she could build a UPK center. So it takes time, but we hear it. You know, when we started it, so I share that yes, the board could pull, or, you know, the district could and the board could elect to use general funds. And we know we will need to do that when we're able to bring it in-house. And it's tough when it's not offered, when it's not really universal. So it is the $5,400. We are looking at, there are some, you know, potential abilities down the road in terms of finding, increasing funding source. And so you know, there's some information we're still trying to dig into around being able to get extra money. Our understanding from working with the state was that we could have applied for something that would have allowed us more money, but not more per pupil. And so that's what we're trying to work out. There are some districts, which makes it, I think the reality is difficult, is the CBOs now are not necessarily owned by like one family who's running an in-house preschool or daycare, but it is, you know, they own many. And there are some districts, due to their wealth ratio, that they're able to offer more money per student. We don't fall in that to make it easy, but it is something we're continuing to sort of leave no rock unturned on what we can do to support the UPK program. And it's interesting, you know, history's always fun in the sense that we've been talking about UPK and running UPK for about 6 years. And so it took time to really work it out. Mary Sapone is absolutely amazing because she is relentless in a good way with calling the state and finding out every avenue we can and really pushed. And so we now have 2 years in. And you know, I'm a silver lining. So the fact that all of a sudden we might not be able to do it, and the number of people who came out is great, because it really is that sort of, my Shark Tank term would be proof of concept, right? Like, this is working, this is something our community wants, and we need to keep digging in to make sure that we can ensure that it is hopefully one day actually universal, but in the meantime, making sure that we have every dollar from the state UPK that we use. And that money is really tied up in a grant, so we, you know, apply for it. So it's not like money. It is, the state will take it back and use it for something else if we don't use the UPK funding. But you know, we don't want to leave money on the table if we can help it. So I think that's. I just want to kind of go over. There's a lot there. Yeah.
One question. Could you share with the community the names of the CBOs that we're partnering with?
Yeah. So it's Carolot. And I had to look at my phone a friend in the audience. So it's Carolot and then Inspire. So we're looking at 2 different sites. 2 are owned by Carolot and 2 are owned by Inspire. And we're working through that now.
So it's 4 sites.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, 4 sites.
4 sites, 2 companies.
2 Carolot, 2 Inspire.
2 partners, yes,
Yep.
2 and 2.
Yeah, thank you. So those are the ones we're working on now.
And are they situated all throughout Penfield?
They are, there is no requirement that the CBO has to be within the district boundaries.
Okay.
So there are some that are, and there are some that are not.
Okay.
There are a number of, and I won't use the names here, but there are a number of potential CBOs, you know, private preschools in our area that they're just not interested now. We have called, we meaning Mary Sapone has called many, many times, and you know, they might be interested. One of the reasons we opened the RFP process again this year is because we thought we had another preschool daycare that was interested, and then they ended up not submitting the proposal, and so that did slow us down, but we were really hopeful we were going to have another one. And it's a big ask. It's a big undertaking for a preschool or daycare site to take that on. But we partner, we provide meals, we provide curriculum, we provide support. But ideally, in a perfect world, having UPK in-house means that it's, you know, Penfield staff hired to support. And ideally, that is, I think that would be the best for consistency. We know the turnover rate. I have a kindergartner. If you've got little kids who've been in daycare or preschool, you know that the turnover rate many times is much higher than a public school, especially Penfield. We don't see a lot of turnover with staff. And so that's something that we are continuing to work on. You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay.
I would just share the last thing is folks who are listening who maybe have a preschool age child for next year or even in 2 years, when we send out the census and ask families in the community to fill it out, that's how we know that you have a future preschooler in your house, and that's where we get you into our system so you can get emails and messages. So always encourage folks to, let us know if you've got little ones in the house so we can, it helps us plan for enrollment projections, but also helps to know who we send information to. Because like a UPK letter didn't go out to every parent because we really wanted to hit the people that we knew would be, utilizing UPK potentially. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Driffill.
Thanks, Dr. Putnam.
You're welcome.
Good evening, board. I have some business updates for you tonight. Firstly, and kind of chiefly here, we'll review our budget development with regards to the state budget status, our proposed 24-25 budget with those supporting revenues, and take a look at a preliminary local funding impact with regards to the tax levy and projected tax rates. And then on your agenda packet this evening, we need to approve project change orders, both for the 2021 capital project that Dr. Putnam mentioned earlier, that's a small one, and then the stimulus funded project over at Indian Landing for the HVAC. There were some design changes that the teachers requested, so there's some changes for your approval tonight. We have that superintendent's proposed budget for you to approve. We also need to approve the property tax report card. I'm not going to go into the property tax report card, but this is now an annual requirement whereby we have to list what the budget is, what the anticipated levy is going to be, what the projected enrollment is, what all of our anticipated year-end fund balance figures are, and what the plans are for certain reserves for next year. We have to submit that to the state within 24 hours of your approval, so that's something we'll be doing tomorrow. And then we also need to approve all of the election officials for that May 21st vote date. So budget development process, I'm sure you're getting sick of seeing this chart, but we are now at the, we're at the beginning of the end here. So most of these to-do things are green. We're giving you a proposed budget tonight. We're amidst those legal requirements around legal notices and the hearing date, things like that, public budget notice being fully online. And then here it is. So not a lot of changes from the meeting that we had at the end of March before spring break. The final proposed budget for next year comes to $119,681,725. So it's a $2.7 million increase, or 2.36%. I think at our last meeting we were at 2.37, so very close to where we were last time. Again, those kind of major cost drivers that we've discussed over and over in the 21 and 22 functions around the increased staffing for our faculty as we built out that integrated co-taught teaching program that we heard about earlier. Obviously, employee benefits increasing quite a bit. And then the other big story of this budget is all that debt service money falling off, that $4.5 million decrease there. So the other way to slice the proposed budget is by object. That was function. So the thing that jumps out right away is that wages and benefits make up about 3/4 of our budget. So we always say education is a people business. And I think in the last couple of years we learned that we want it to be a people business, and that's where we do best and where we thrive. The next biggest budget line is our BOCES budget. That makes up 13% of the budget. Then contractual costs, so that's costs for all outside services, utilities, gasoline, professional development, things like that, is 8% of the budget. Equipment and materials is 3% of the budget. Debt service is 1% of the budget. And then interfund transfers, $230,000 next year, partially goes towards the school lunch fund and partially goes toward the special aid fund to cover the cost of special education services over the summer. And again, you can kind of see where those major cost drivers are. The other thing that we have to do when we adopt the budget is look at the three-part component analysis of our budget. So this is administrative costs, programmatic costs, and capital costs. You can see where we are in the current 23-24 year, and then the proration of spending within this year's budget and where we're going to be next year. And then the year-over-year differences both in dollars and percentage. So you can see the administrative costs are increasing about $500,000. The programmatic costs increasing just under $6.5 million, and capital decreasing $4.1 million. Again, that's where the debt service dollars come from, that decrease there. So you can see that as a proration of spending, administrative costs are basically the same year over year. The decrease in cost for capital essentially gets shifted over to the programming side of it. So 10.14% on administrative costs, program costs a little over 80%, and capital a little under 10% there. So I had hoped to have more information about the New York State budget, but we don't have a New York State budget yet. There's been multiple extenders. There was a press conference yesterday afternoon with the governor where they have a conceptual framework of a budget. Currently, the latest budget extender goes to Thursday. Tomorrow was the last scheduled day of the legislative session for another couple weeks because Passover is about to start and they take a 2-week recess. So we don't have any information about what this is going to look like. So for purposes of our revenue budget, we're still going with the governor's numbers that she had proposed back in January, which, if you believe the reporting, is probably what we're going to get. It looks like they have backed off that hold harmless provision that hurt so many districts in the state, but it didn't really affect us. And it does look like they're holding on to that inflationary factor adjustment that she had proposed. So hopefully we'll be able to share any budget impacts as it relates to dollars or policy at our budget hearing in a couple weeks. You know, I know at our last meeting we talked about school meals and BOCES reimbursement and all these other really nice things, UPK funding, but we don't have any information on that tonight. So at this point, it's just kind of status quo. So as I mentioned, on the education funding side, we're just going with the governor's numbers. We're sticking with that 3.29% on the levy. County sales tax we haven't changed. All the revenue we haven't changed. And the assigned fund balance that we discussed a couple of meetings ago presents us, you know, the balanced budget here again at that $2.76 million increase, or 2.36% year over year. I did just want to touch a little bit on the levy. So in the tax cap era, since the laws of 2011 went into effect, you can see on the left-hand side each year what the levy cap was. The levy cap, as a reminder, is what we're allowed as a taxing jurisdiction to levy as a percentage. That would only require 50% voter approval. You can see in every year since that 2012-13 year, Penfield has been under the cap. In 2 of the last 3 years, we were at 0% on the levy. And you can see that this year, you know, we're still significantly under at 3.29%. The average for this over the last 12 years is about 3% on the levy cap and about 2% actually on the levy. So the levy cap this year, as we've discussed, is at 4.56%, and the levy itself is going to be 3.29%. So for community approval, we just need 50% of voters to say yes to the budget. But I want to talk a little bit about how tax rates come from our decision to adopt the tax levy. So the tax levy at 3.29% is the first step. At that point, we need to get town assessments. We have 6 towns in Penfield, as a reminder, across 2 different counties. 2 different counties share different sales taxes, and by state law, the sales taxes are an offset to the levy, so it gets a little confusing there. And then I know we always like to discuss the New York State equalization rates, which we'll touch on in a moment, which gets us to our tax rates. As a reminder, the board doesn't actually adopt tax rates until August, so things will change with these forthcoming projections. I've shown this infographic in years past because I think it's helpful. So like I said, Penfield Central has 6 towns in our community. If you look at this example, you have a house in town A, let's call that Brighton. You have a house in town B, let's call that Penfield. Both of the houses on the open market would sell for $250,000, $250,000 each. The house in Brighton is assessed at $185,000, but the assessor in Penfield has assessed that house at $250,000. So at that point, when you have multiple towns, the state steps in with their equalization rate, whereby they determine what the assessment ratio is compared to what they believe the perceived market value is. So you can see the equalization rate in town A is all the way down to 74%, as the state believes that that house is underassessed. Whereas the equalization rate in town B is at 100%. The full market value on the open market equals, in theory, the assessed value. So then you can see that the town tax rates are quite different. That town A has a $27.03 per $1,000 of assessed value tax rate, and the house in Town B has a $20 tax rate. But both of the houses are paying the exact same amount on their school bill. So I think this is a useful exercise to go through every year because how we calculate tax rates I think can be nebulous. Anybody's always welcome to contact my office if they have questions about their tax bill or their assessments, and I can help them walk through their different options. So within that, at our last meeting, we talked about what the tentative equalization rates were going to be for this 24-25 year, and you can see that all 6 of our towns are once again decreasing. And this is a continuation of the last couple of years, and this is a reflection of a still hot housing market, where market values of houses are outpacing increases in assessments. So within those decreases in equalization rates, we can see what the projected rates are for next year. I do have an asterisk on the slide because this will change many more times before the board adopts the tax warrant in August. You can see Penfield would increase a little over 2%, Perrington would have an 8% bump, Pittsford 3%, Brighton a little under 2%, Macedon and Walworth around 6%. The line that I always go to is the true value tax rate. So this is the calculation that if all 6 of the towns were at 100% of their equalization, what the true value tax rate would be for Penfield Central. And you can see next year that would be dropping $1 per $1,000 of assessed value, or 5.4%. And that's a continuation, a trend that we've seen in the last handful of years here. So if we go back 6-7 years, the true value tax rate for Penfield was over $25 for multiple years. And next year it's projected to be all the way down under $18. So this is a reflection of 2 things. One, those big drops in equalization rate as a reflection of the increases in market value of homes, but then also us being under our cap the last so many years, driving down that tax rate a bit. So we will have much more information coming up. So those board member petitions are due next Monday at 5 o'clock to the district clerk, Mrs. Astro. The full budget packet will be available online and in our buildings by April 30th. So this includes all of the salary disclosures, all the tax abatement things, the school report cards, the financial transparency reports. Meet the Candidates Night will also be held on that Tuesday, April 30th. Our budget hearing, which will fully review the whole scope of our budget development process over the last 6 months, is on May 7th here at PHS at 6:30. After that, the budget notice is mailed out to all members in the community. And the statewide vote and board election, 3rd Tuesday in May, this year, May 21st, from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. here at PHS over in the gymnasium. So any questions with regard to the budget or any of the action items tonight? I know we've talked a lot about budget. I appreciate your patience. But I know it's something, the community at large is always very interested in, and I appreciate us taking the time to go through it.
Board members, questions or comments? I don't have any either. Thank you so much.
That's because you did a great job.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
I always like to point out, and I know you did, is that the equalization rates are set by
New York State.
New York State. So that equalization rate is not the district. They tell us what the equalization rates are.
Yeah, that comes from the Department of Tax and Finance, I believe.
Thank you.
Yep.
That concludes superintendent reports.
Okay, public comment. So we have speakers tonight, so I just want to go over a few things.
5A.
Oh, how do I keep missing everything? Oh, because
We
I
don't
was
usually have that in there.
thinking about that, yes. All right. So, thank you. Can I please have a motion and a second that the Board of Education authorizes the Board of Education president as an alternate to designate and approve impartial hearing officers during 2023-2024 school year?
So moved.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? Now, public comments? Okay, so any individual that is registered to speak or signed up to speak has 3 minutes. I will recognize you to come up. Once the 3 minutes is up, please, you will hear a ding, a chime, ding. A noise. I'm talking to middle schoolers right now. I'm sorry. I'm still in that mode. And I just ask that you finish your thought, and that you understand that any questions or comments that you pose, the board is not going to respond. The superintendent will provide a written response for you. And that is pretty much it. So we have, and please correct me if I mispronounce your name, Megan Westbrook Burnham.
Am I making comments here?
Oh, yeah,
You
no,
can come right up. I'm sorry. You can come right up to that.
You don't have to worry about the clicker, but you got a microphone.
Great. Am I able to just start?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share our family's concerns. I've definitely heard the board, and the people from the district share that UPK has been a concern for everyone. We recognize that. I was able to meet with Dr. Potter and Dr. Maloney last week, which I greatly appreciated. My husband and I have 2 children in the Penfield School District. Our daughter's in 1st grade and our son is 4. So we were really looking forward to being able to apply for UPK for him this fall. As a parent, it's so disappointing that our son may not even have the chance to be in this lottery. I understand that that's the UPK is a structure that the state uses. It's not available to every student in most districts in this area. It was a huge surprise to me when my daughter was born because in Erie County, for example, they do have a preschool for every kid in the district. And it would be great to get to that point. Obviously, that's not where it is right now. But our daughter didn't get to participate because she was in kindergarten when the program started. Now that our son may not, because there's a question about whether there will be enough locations for this fall, is really challenging for our family. The fact that circumstances have prevented the applications from even going out to families at this point is an incredible hardship because many programs are full at this point. Many programs have wait lists, and if you don't know what's available, it's very difficult to be making those choices as a parent, and we're talking about something that is supposed to start in September. My husband and I both work, so we have to have care for our 4-year-old son. Our son is currently going to Browncroft, which is one of the Carolot locations that will be participating. That being said, they haven't been able to say to parents what's going to be available for students for this fall because they haven't known. And they still have not been able to confirm that they will have places for kids who are not lottery winners. And that's, again, our family. I mean, I understand we're affected a little bit more than most because our son goes to Browncroft, but it just creates a lot of difficulty not knowing and not even knowing if the care that we have had in place since he was born is going to be able to continue because of this uncertainty about the UPK program. The other thing I wanted to share is just the communication. I understand things happen, but the fact that that notice in March did not go out to all parents and then no notice follow-up to parents who had Yahoo email accounts in particular was actually sent was another disappointment. If that happens where there's a problem with the communication that goes out to families, I feel like the district should send an additional communication, especially to those families who didn't get that update. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Audrey Lates. Did I pronounce it correctly?
You did actually.
Oh,
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
My name is Audrey Laitez. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I would also like to discuss Penfield's UPK program. Firstly, I do thank Dr. Putnam for the update. That was great news to hear that they have even more spots than was previously communicated, well, anticipated. And I am going to echo a lot of his comments generally. So I think the UPK program is very important to our children and families in the district. As some of you may know, private preschool is very expensive, and as Megan just communicated, local spots are extremely competitive with year-plus waiting lists. The academic, social, emotional, and equitable access facets of preschool education are well documented, with the rigor expected of our children in kindergarten, as well as recent economic financial strains on families. I think this is a very important program that the district continue to work to offer. Locally, many peer districts in the county are also offering this, either through the community-based organizations, the CBOs, in-house, or a combination of both. That includes Fairport and Webster, for example. I do urge the district to continue working to secure the contracts with the CBOs for the coming academic year, to push for as many spots as possible, and also to continue to work with legislative support like Representative Lunsford. And then long term, I do think the district should continue to work internally to secure the program's future. Contracting with the CBOs seems difficult and unpredictable, so I think kind of an in-house option or a combination of that would better enable the program's future success. And I do think the support from the community for this program highlights that maybe we should also consider budgetary funds from Penfield directly to be used for this program. So, thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Gardner.
Hi, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. I do just want to, I guess, express my continued concern and confusion just regarding the district's response to the racist violent threats that were made in February. I have in front of me the, I guess, message on Parent Square that was put out on March 28th by Dr. Putnam there, and I think that it probably refers to the incident that I'm talking about. It can't be for, certain because it doesn't specify much. But I think that the district needs to be clear with the parents and the community about what happened and what your investigation looked like. Because as far as I know, you still don't know who the intended victim is. And that's really shameful. I understand that, as you stated, Dr. Putnam, that you're obligated to follow the laws and guidelines when considering the information we're able to share about the specific incidents and our students. But you can share information about what an investigation looks like. You cite DASA, that's your response. To cite policy. And as a parent who has a child who's been on the receiving end of a DASA report, I can say that when I experienced that as a parent, I was really shocked that there was no follow-up. There was nothing. It was, hey, this is what happened. It was addressed in the classroom, and thankfully, I have such trust in the teachers at Indian Landing and our principal, so I can trust that, yes, it was handled in the classroom. But I can't say that for, how this was handled on the bus, or speak for any of the teachers or principals at the high school. And I don't know that it was handled. What have you guys done to find the student? Have you checked with all students that may have been impacted? Have you told all of their parents exactly what happened, the language that was used? Because I don't know or trust that you have. And I know that the board, I know you're not responsible for the day-to-day in and out, but this is too important. And when we have our superintendent defaulting to policy, you guys are in on the policy making, and with communications with the superintendent. So I hope that more can be done, and our students deserve more. That's all.
Thank
Thank
you. Sherry Mentor.
So I have to prepare something for today. I don't really like public speaking, but I felt this was important to bring up. So, good evening. My name is Sherry Mentor. 5 years ago, my family made the decision to move to Rochester. At the time, I was concerned about the lack of diversity, but hopeful about the opportunities my son would have. However, as time has passed, it has become painfully clear that our community is grappling with deep-rooted issues of representation and diversity. The recent racist incident communicated to us via Parent Square in February of this year cannot be brushed aside with trite non-apologies or empty promises. We must acknowledge the harsh reality that exists within our school and take meaningful action to address it head-on. As parents and community members, it is our responsibility to ensure that every child within our school district feels safe, valued, and respected. Yet the truth is that many of our children are being failed by a system that perpetuates inequality and injustice. We can't continue to pay lip service to the ideals of diversity and inclusion while failing to confront the systemic barriers that prevent so many from fully participating in our schools. It is not enough to simply condemn acts of racism when they occur. We must actively work to dismantle the systems and structures that enable such behavior to thrive. This requires a commitment to examining our own biases, challenging discriminatory practices, and actively promoting equity and justice within our schools and neighborhoods. As parents, we have a unique opportunity and responsibility to lead by example. We must hold ourselves and our fellow community members accountable for our actions and ensure that our words are backed by meaningful deeds. This means listening to the voices of those who have been marginalized or silenced, amplifying their concerns, and working collaboratively to address them. Moreover, it means rejecting the temptation to sweep uncomfortable truths under the rug in favor of maintaining the status quo. True progress requires discomfort, sacrifice, and a willingness to confront the hard truths about ourselves and our society. But it's only by doing so that we can truly create a community where every child has the opportunity to thrive. As an actionable next step, I would like to propose a comprehensive review of the curriculum across all grade levels to ensure that it accurately reflects the diversity of our student body and incorporates perspectives from diverse cultures, backgrounds, and identities. Change will not happen overnight, but with sustained and ongoing commitment, we will see a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are on 7A, change orders. May I have a motion and a second that the change orders that are described be approved?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? May I have a motion and a second that the budget for the 2024-25 school year be submitted to the voters for approval on May 21st, 2024 in the amount of $119,681,725.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Be it resolved that the Penfield Central School District Board of Education approve the 2024-25 property tax report as presented. Be it further resolved that the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance is directed to submit the property tax report card to the State Education Department by the end of the next business day following this approval. May I please have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approves the 2024-25 property tax report card as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. The following candidates have been nominated for their or by their respective boards for positions as members of the BOCES board. It has been past practice for component boards of education to endorse the candidate nominated by the Board of Education whose seat is up for election. Seat 1, resolved to cast 1 vote for the election of Margaret Burns, resident of West Irondequoit Central School District, as a member of the Monroe BOCES 1 board for a term of office which begins on July 1st, 2024 and ends June 30th, 2027. Seat 2, resolved to cast 1 vote for the election of Mark Kokanovic, resident of the Brighton Central School District, as a member of the Monroe 1 BOCES board for a term of office which begins July 1st, 2024 and ends June 30th, 2027. Seat 3, resolved to cast 1 vote for the election of Tom Nespeka, resident of the Webster Central School District, as a member of the Monroe 1 BOCES board for a term of office which begins on July 1st, 2024 and ends on June 30th, 2027. Seat 4, resolved to cast 1 vote for the election of Maureen Knupp, resident of the Fairport Central School District, as a member of the Monroe 1 BOCES board for a term of office which begins on July 1st, 2024 and ends June 30th, 2027. Lastly, Seat 5, resolved to cast 1 vote for the election of Nancy Semo, resident of the East Irondequoit Central School District, as a member of the Monroe 1 BOCES board for a term of which will begin on July 1st, 2024 and end June 30th, 2027. May I please have a motion and a second that the Board of Education cast 1 vote for election of each candidate as a member of the Monroe 1 BOCES board?
So moved.
All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. May I please have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approves the proposed BOCES administrative budget in the amount of $5,820,485 for the 2024-25 fiscal year?
So moved.
All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Policies for first read. We have 3280, community use of public school facilities. 3280, regulation, use of school facilities. And 3280, regulation .1, user fees. I will.
Would you like me to speak to those?
Absolutely.
So just as a reminder, the board's aware, but for the community, the board's required to approve policies. The regulations is, so the policy typically is the what, and then the regulation is how it's going to get done. But we always bring regulations to the board as well for the community to review. So this policy 3280 and the regulations that go with it is our community use of public school facilities, also known as facilities use. We have incredible taxpayer dollar facilities. We want to partner with community in order to utilize those, but we haven't touched this policy in any real manner for a long time. And so it used to be 1 policy and 6 regulations, Dr. Driffill? And so we really tried to scale back and really focus on reviewing it. We've done an audit on the facilities use and a lot of work from the business office. So you'll see a lot of changes in there. There are some increases to our fee schedule I encourage folks to look at. There's also, we used to have an application fee. So to apply to use our space, you'd pay an application fee. We've taken that application fee out, but encourage folks to take a look at that. And policies that are first read will remain up online for folks to review and share feedback with our district clerk, Mrs. Zastro. And then the policy committee will meet again before it comes to second read at the next meeting in May.
Okay, policy for approval. Can I have a motion and a second that the above policy, 1640 absentee, military, and early mail ballots, be approved as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approves Megan Doriti, Esquire, as chairperson of election for the May 21, 2024 budget vote and election?
So moved.
All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? And may I have a motion and a second that the board approves Kathleen Zastro as chief election inspector for the May 21st, 2024 budget vote and election?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? And may I have a motion and a second that the board approves the individuals named above to serve as election inspectors and assistant clerks at the May 21st, 2024 budget vote and election?
Second.
All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed? You'll see next that we have the draft schedule for next year's meetings. Does anyone have any comments? So workshops have been added instead of 2 board meetings. Some have been replaced with workshops, which I think would be very beneficial. Okay, and that's it. Monroe County School Board's committee meetings, labor relations. Oh, Mark is not here. And then, did anyone else go to labor relations?
I can't remember what the topic was. I apologize, and I should have checked, but I don't think I was there.
I don't think any of us went to that one.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark was there, but we weren't.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he can present
Next
time.
board meeting. All right.
Legislative committee, Nicole.
Yeah. At this last time, Adrian Hale from the Board of Regents was there. And the meeting went long, and I had to leave, but I was there, I think, for most of it. So he talked a lot about My Brother's Keeper, which I don't think we have it in Penfield. Yeah. That's about closing the achievement gap for men of color. He talked about that for that, as well as general, he would like to see districts not just looking at graduation rates as a sign of success, because graduation alone doesn't determine future success. He talked a lot about technology, the oft talked about ChatGPT and teaching kids to use that in an ethical way. And then there was a lot of talk about mental health. And I found myself agreeing with 2 of the main things that came out was sort of low-hanging fruit. When we've talked a lot about mental health and hiring more mental health professionals, which is important and good and right, but then there's a couple of things that are low-hanging fruit with lots of research behind them, and a couple of people talked about them, and one of which is the use of digital devices, and I thought it was interesting that in the onboard newspaper that we got sort of echoed the comments, just that more districts are banning cell phone use. And I just said a hearty amen in my kitchen, just because, again, low-hanging fruit, everybody who has a brain understands that social media has a negative impact on kids, and we can't control what happens outside of school, but if kids are off of their devices for 7 or 8 hours a day, that could only be a good thing. And so, some people talk, well, that article talked about, and then some people at the meeting talked about just the pushback that will surely come even from teachers who are used to saying, when you're done with your work, pull out your phone. And I found myself thinking, what happened to when you're done with your work, pull out a book? Like, we're a school. So I think, and also parents, including myself, will have to be retrained, like you don't have access to your kid. I mean, they don't have access to their elementary and middle school kids now, but high school kids, you won't have access to them all the time. But none of us grew up with our parents having access to us in school, and we all grew up. So I think it's, again, low-hanging fruit. I think it's silly to talk about mental health without talking about this. And the other piece of low-hanging fruit, which I gave another hearty amen, is I've talked about it myself, which is later start times for high school students, that anybody who has done any research at all talks about circadian rhythms changing for teenagers, and teenagers naturally fall asleep later and want to wake up later. It's not because they're lazy, it's because that's what their body does. And that teenagers need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, and that's impossible unless they fall asleep at 8 p.m., which no teenager will. So we're doing it backwards, in that little kids naturally wake up early and go to bed early, and our schools start later for little kids. So I just think it is foolish to talk about mental health without addressing these two bits of low-hanging fruit. And that was talked about a lot, so I know I'm not alone.
I'll just share, I had the superintendent county meeting on Friday, so that came up, a review of the legislative committee and Regent Hale, and who was a speaker last year at an event we went to, who's great. He's a talker,
yes, that's why
he went long. But the two is in Monroe County, I believe, from who was at the table, is the only district that collects cell phones is Greece, the 4 high schools in Greece, and they collect. So we asked for, just some information. I think the superintendent group will be digging in a little further just to see how it's going. This is, I think, their first year. I look at Mr. Fox, I think it's their first year with this. It's been bumpy the first few months, but they said it's sort of settled out. I think maybe it's a conversation in terms of community-wide. I think that access to students is a shift for not just kids, it's also families and caregivers who are texting and all those pieces. So it would be a reminder that we do have phones in all of our offices. We have an attendance line, a main office line, a grade level assistant line. So it's something we can look at. And the other one is the late start for high school, which so far is only Webster, that made that shift a couple years ago. And talking with Webster, like, do you have any data? Because I've talked to a couple community members, like, do you have any data? Like, it would be great if you had, like, before the change and after the change, and look at our attendance rates when, got better, or grades. It's just they changed and then COVID hit. So really all their data sort of out the window is what they've looked at. I don't want to say it's out the window, but it's pretty tough to look at because you had COVID in the middle of this. That being said, there are a couple other districts who are looking at studies. So no definitive change, but continuing to study. Fairport's studying it again, and Pittsford is studying as well. So I don't know where that will go, but it's something, if the board is interested and the community is interested as we look at moving forward. It definitely takes some planning and time, I think, for both of those. In Greece, they use there's a name for them, but the pouches that lock up and they don't unlock until the end. So.
Yeah, so they could.
I won't tell you the ways students found their ways around that. I won't say that publicly. I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but it is definitely interesting.
The fact that they're locked and unlocked means that at the end of the day, they can see if there's a change in pickup plan or something like that. So it's not like they have to wait till they get home.
No.
But,
yeah. So it's definitely those pieces. And I think our new code of conduct, really hearing from students is really that, like, none at all at elementary. So I'll share, we've had to, it's not really phones at elementary, but it's smartwatches. That's the piece, because it's really cool, and you get, and not always the, not always the Apple product, that's very pricey, but there's lots of other ones. But it's still this, it's a hard conversation, because it is a fun gift to wear, but it is an electronic device, and we don't allow it. The K-5 middle school is supposed to be in your backpack or locker. I got to work at Bay Trail for a little bit, and they definitely, you don't see a whole lot. There's phones that pop out, but it is not really. I thought I'd see a lot more at lunch and things like that. There wasn't. The high school is still the only place where we allow them with some rules, but something to definitely take a look at.
Yeah, I just remember that it was not just the social media piece, but also the socialization piece.
Yes.
Because in high school lunch, instead of talking to friends, they're staring at their, not all kids, but so that is one of the reasons why, anybody who's looking at youth mental health is social media and lack of socialization, face-to-face socialization. So anything that we can do that in the 7 hours that they're here, which is their main time to socialize. I think it's important to look at.
Okay. District committee, so we have audit committee.
Surprise. So it was a quicker meeting. We went over our internal control risk assessment. Some of the things were just basically, we have a pretty stable staff, which is always a good thing. It helps. One of the recommendations was examining the challenges just in managing and editing our payroll and reporting data, and just looking for opportunities to minimize any chance of errors. Our drama club had significantly more in their account than they are actually using, so that was something we chatted about. Payroll expressed some frustration around the challenges of just processing payroll due to the complexities of just punching in was difficult for some people, and they have to go back and fix it. But generally, Penfield's doing really good. I feel like it was a positive report. Our risks seem to be relatively low. I don't know, anything to add? It was quick.
It was quick.
Oh, and then our next, I think we decided officially we're going to do STAC as our next internal audit, which is our system for tracking accounting. Hasn't been done in a while.
Thank you for explaining what that stack is.
Well, it's only because I wrote it down. I don't remember.
I was like, "Here, that's good." Okay.
Did I miss anything, Dan?
No, I think you got it. The specific concern around the punching was with the transportation department with payroll. They're the only ones that actually use a physical punch clock. So we have a system where every day the office staff goes in and they see whether or not a punch was good, there was an error, and then you have to reconcile that on a daily basis. And it's also further complicated by our collective bargaining contract, where in the winter they have more time to prepare the bus because you have to de-ice it and get it ready, and then that changes and people forget, and just one of those really mundane sort of minutia conversations that we live with.
Yeah, it just kind of is what it is. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. All right, meet the candidates night. This event will be held during a closed meeting on Tuesday, April 30th, 2024 at 7 p.m. and will be live streamed in the same manner as our board meetings. Okay. Any unfinished business?
I said I had a question. I forgot what it was.
Okay.
So next time, I can't remember. I really had a question.
All right. Well, next time when you
I'll
think
write
of
it
it.
down.
Yes. All right. Any new business? All right. Can I have a motion and a second that the meeting be adjourned at 8:41 p.m.?
Second.
All those in favor? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed?
I like when